off. As much as I like chit-chatting and getting to talk to y'all and everything like that, some people are here for knowledge and information. I want to make sure we get that. Couple of announcements. Okay, we have tomorrow on the west side, we have I'm gonna just pull up the invite here. Where'd it go? We got an agent mixer, networking mixer. It's not just the agents. Let me see, I think it's a mixer or something like that. Hold on, let me pull it up real quick. Freddie had sent it out. So tomorrow in St. Pete, there's an agent networking mixer right there. 5 to 7. I don't really know that many realtors who like to consume alcoholic beverages, but if you must have one or two, then that's for you right there. Okay. We also have, it's a weird way to do announcements. Let me check my invites and whatnot. Here I got this over here, downloads. This is weird and random. Rob, don't judge me too much, man. I never do it like this, I promise. All right. Just like whatever's easiest today is what I'm trying to pull up. So I don't know if y'all saw my my email yet, but we're doing a baseball game. There's 2 baseball games. Okay. One this Saturday. HomeSmart's paying for it all, man. This is your chance to win back your $350 from your last transaction, right? So sadly, no drinks at this one, but all you can eat food for 2.5 hours. You can like bring little baggies, put them in your pockets and stuff like that. Stuff some extra food in there. Bring some extra friends and whatnot. So this is meant for your immediate family, brother, sister, cousin, mother, that sort of thing, and yourself, right? So it's not just you. You don't have to come by yourself and be Han Solo or anything like that. But there's also one the Saturday after that on the west side. So this is like Lakeland here. So if you could come, please come. Let me make this a little bit bigger so people can actually see it. If I know how to do that, that'd be great. There we go. Plus always works. Control plus. All right. So Lakeland, all the details are here. I'm going to be emailing this out like 4 times over the next 4 days. So once a day. Game starts at 6. We're going to start meeting and whatnot and food and everything like that at 5. So RSVP, if you already haven't, if you haven't seen the link, it's going to come to you today, approximately 1 o'clock. So and there's one next week as well. So any questions about that at all? I know Renee Kelly's coming, right, Renee?
Yep, I'm bringing my daughter. Yep, sure am.
Yes. I love it. I was throwing it out there because she hadn't RSVP'd yet. Maybe she did. Did you RSVP? There was like 2 people before I asked for the name.
Yeah, I did.
Okay. There we go. Okay. Beautiful. All right. So without further ado, let's get this bad boy kicked off. Do you need to share your screen, Mr. Rob? Mr. Rob, let me judge. I can do better than that. Hold on, Mr. Rob. Rob is a solar genius. Okay. He's going to drop the knowledge on us. Notice he's not correcting me. He's like, yeah, I am. I'm kind of solar genius. Jeremy said it. I'm not going to argue with you, man.
I've met my match in real estate to solar. So.
Oh, I love it. Look at that. He complimented himself and me at the same time. I love this guy. All right, Rob, we're hanging out. We're going to the mixer tomorrow night. We're having some drinks. Okay, on HomeSmart. So we just got to drive to St. Pete. Well, carpool. You got the Tesla, right? Okay, good. All right. So anyway, without further ado, Rob is going to drop the knowledge on us of kind of what we should know. I don't know about y'all, but there's a lot of misinformation about solar. Like I don't trust 90% of probably 99% of the people that I talk to about solar. But Rob, his wife is actually one of our agents. Miriam is one of our agents, and he is married to Miriam. And I've talked to him, and he didn't just, I want to get solar for my house. And he didn't just say, oh, well, let me come out and break out your checkbook and let's do this and this and that. He said, well, it's a brand new house. So the best way to do this is to, have a couple of bills and everything like that. And then we could properly assess what your usage is. And I'm like, wait, what? You don't just want to try to sell me $50,000 worth of solar? That seems so weird. But anyway, Rob, please take it away. I'm butchering probably what you're gonna say and everything like that. So go ahead.
Oh no, not at all. Thank you, Jeremy. I thank everybody for their time today. Again, my name is Rob Vaniglia. I also invited Gigi as my business partner and everything solar. And so he is absolute phenomenal resource as well. He'll probably do more of the talking. He is much more eloquent at this type of stuff than I am. But just kind of a little bit of context about me, super quick intro. I've been in the kind of clean energy, sustainable space for a little over 10 years. I started with Tesla over 10 years ago. Before they went public, it was this tiny little car company making this little roadster no one ever heard of. An electric car was a golf cart at the time. And obviously we've seen how the industry has changed, right? I helped them launch the Model S and the Model X. I helped them build their global delivery service after sales organizations. And I just kind of fell in love with that sector. And I've been in a lot of tech startups and EV companies. But when we moved down here to Florida in the Sunshine State, I got connected into solar, and that was the combination of everything that I love. It's clean energy, it's technology, it's customer service, and helping homeowners, right? And I just really love teaching and educating on solar and the benefits that it has to homeowners. So that's what we do all day. Gigi and I basically work from home, and we help people, right? And that is the goal. And exactly like Jeremy said, there's a lot of confusion and misinformation about solar. There's way too much sales tactic that solar deserves. Solar is phenomenal for the right people, and it's not a good fit for some. And that's just being honest and transparent and helping people understand. For the right people, it's a no-brainer, right? And so that's really what we do all day. So I want to kind of tee it over to Gigi. He can give a little bit of intro about himself. He's been in the space longer, and he's an absolute rock star with a top earner, top producer in our entire company. And so without further ado, Gigi, I'll let you do your intro.
Well, good morning. Good morning. First of all, Jeremy, thank you for having us. Rob, thank you for the very nice complimenting intro. The good news is that most of the work you'll be doing is with Rob. So as much as I can blabber today, you got the good side of business. I'm just the sweet talker, just kidding. But it's really about one thing, and that's a key word that both Jeremy and Rob said, and that's misinformation. And I'm kind of talking about the bad side first, because unfortunately, it's not even the 80-20, it's about 99-1, like Jeremy said. There's so much misinformation out there. And unfortunately, it's a decentralized industry. That means that for years, even now with the new bill and all, there's going to be a lot of sellers that just try to sell no matter what, just try to make them money. By the time the homeowner actually have solar on the roof, they're probably out of business or in a different company, and somebody is going to get hurt. And the problem is in solar is if you screwed up a homeowner, you got them screwed up for 35 to 45 years. This is the second biggest decision that most homeowners make during their lifetime. And it's really important to do it the right way. So Jeremy, you saw, for example, that, Rob's first motion is let's make sure you can make an informed decision. And you'll find that a lot of homeowners are actually almost against it. They're used to the sale part, like, oh, just tell me what's the price. And we're going to be those jerks to tell you, I'm sorry, but I actually need some information first. I actually want to analyze the house properly. So first of all, again, I appreciate being here. It's a lot of proper information that you would want to get in order to understand solar in the best way possible. But there's two things that I just want to preface here. The first one is understand that you guys are in the best realm to not just help people get solar, but to give them a huge amount of added value just because of what you're doing with them already as far as the home. They're going to be looking for solar with the new climate bill that's about to pass, now certainly, but about to pass. Every single homeowner, I've been saying this on stages for the last few weeks, every single homeowner you're going to talk to in the next 3 months or so is going to hear the word solar in one way or another. Everyone. And it's a matter of whether they're going with a random company, searching in Google best business near me, or if they get a good trusted referral to a trusted company from you. And now you created that value add for them, that extra relationship that they will be able to talk about and say, oh yeah, my realtor sent me to the right company. This is who you should work with. And to echo one more thing that one of our realtors always say, a no for real estate is actually a yes for solar, if you come to think about it. If somebody is not interested in selling a home, they're most likely going to go solar in that home soon. But it's all about that level of information that's really important for them to know, as far as how to assess the solar system needs, as far as making sure they get the best options, the best rates, the financing, but most importantly, that they understand their system and what it is that they're going to get. So just to give you a little bit of an idea why we're both so adamant about it, we're literally created this group called Leading Solar Right, which is about doing solar the right way, rather than just trying, like Jeremy said, just get the checkbook and let's sign it. I've been for about 10 years in the industry, give or take, more on solar, no Teslas. I only drive one. But at the end of the day, 10 years ago, I was in the industry where solar was Bitcoin 20 years ago. You would say solar and people like, well, what does it do? What is it? And, kind of like that little cloud over it. And nowadays you say solar and you're going to get 3 different stories from any person you talk to, right? So at the end of the day, that's really what it's about, is understanding that solar is now here. People are going to talk about it. Every home that has electric bill is going to be looking for it. And for you to know a little bit of the extra details there, the information that's going to give them a value add, that's going to be extremely important, and also puts you on that pedestal of a professional that's really looking out for them. It's one of the best savings they can find today for their home, and especially with the rates going higher and higher. I mean, if you look at Duke Energy in Florida and Orlando, it's just going nuts. Their rates are already double than about 5 years ago. So it's really important to be able to provide that.
Okay. And you had Gigi, I'm saying it right. That's
the easy way.
Okay. All right. So Gigi, you had alluded that like something's coming. I mean, I purposely try to avoid the news just because of all the negativity and everything like that. Can you share a little bit more about that? What exactly is coming down the pipeline here?
Yeah, absolutely. It's, news for me is almost like Facebook. Unless for business, I don't look at it. So the good news is, though, that finally there is some good news that just came out. The climate bill that is now passed the House, passed the Senate, and going to be signed by Biden. And basically that climate bill says that every single piece of clean energy is going to get added incentives. Part of it is the fact that the tax credit for solar is going up back to 30% to the good days. And it's going to stay like that for the next 10 years. What it means is, on top of the extra incentives that homeowners can get, and we'll talk about the tax credit in a moment, it also means that the government just provided this free marketing tool for any homeowner to learn about solar, and they're going to go out there and look for information. And Jeremy, like you said, they're either going to find somebody that says, bring your checkbook and sign this, or they're going to find someone that explains to them the information. And for realtors to be able to have that basic information, at least, that explains the value, like why is an extra home value because of solar, that's really going to bring them that extra value.
Okay. And as I said earlier, I'm new to the whole solar thing. I just bought a brand new home. I definitely don't want to, with roofs being what they are and the expense and everything like that, I don't want to like get solar, put on a brand new roof like 2-3 years later. So I personally want to get it as soon as possible because I believe in it. I drive a hybrid. I'm planning on upgrading to a Tesla or EV vehicle within the next, year or two. But like, what should I know as a homeowner? Like what basic things, like if I was coming to you and say, hey Gigi, I'm thinking about getting solar, what should I do? What should I look out for?
Well, first of all, great question. A couple of things here. I'll talk about the benefits first, which are kind of obvious, but are important to know how to explain them. The first part is you are locking yourself out of those rate increases that happen with every single utility company. And lately it's happening in a more staggering rate. So it keeps happening, keeps going up. That's the first part. It adds to your home value as well, because the simple formula is every single month that you're not paying an electric bill is a month that you've saved an extra amount of money. So at that point, that there is that calculation for how much home value it adds. But on top of all that, you're making sure that you're owning your system, you're owning your electricity instead of renting it. And that's the part that I love the most, because all the common denominator for all solar customers is that they're all homeowners. They have all made their decision before to own versus rent. So for you, for example, you own a home, you just got a brand new roof. It's either that you wait and you pay electricity in the meantime that makes no sense. You're literally paying for what you're using this month and that's it. Or you get a system that you're paying less for from day one. So it's a zero out of pocket. It's not free. Let me say this again. This is important. It is not free. Okay. Like a lot of companies advertise, but it is zero out of pocket. What does it mean? Their payment for solar, your payment for solar is going to be lower than what you're paying to the utility right now. And instead of it, from day one, you're replacing a higher bill with a lower bill that is actually for ownership of your electricity. Okay. So those are the major benefits right there.
Okay. So for instance, it's a, like, let's just say it's just you and me, right? You come over, I give you a couple of utility bills and you're like, okay, Jeremy, you need, 17, I'm just making up numbers. You need 17 panels or something like that. You give me the quote, you're like, for installation, everything like that, yada, yada, yada. Is there a down payment? Is it just the monthly that kind of replaces your electric bill? Like, how does that work?
So actually, let me take you through the customer's journey, because that's going to be important for every single person here as realtors to understand kind of what is needed as well and how do they go through that process. So a good solar process is, Jeremy, you tell me, hey, I'm interested in solar. Like you said, I'd say, send me a copy of your bill. In most bills, there's a graph there that shows all the usage. That's pretty much all we need. Once we get that usage and we assess it, we're going to build a system on your house that's based exactly on your usage. And that's why when people a lot of time call and say, well, how much is it? I really don't know to tell you, because your house can be completely different from your neighbor. And because of the way the roof is, because of the shape, the direction, the azimuth, it can be different. And that's where it comes into being a professional saying, look, get me a copy of your bill. I'm going to assess all your needs. We build a 3D design on your house that we come and show you with a proposal. Now you're going to see how much it costs. You can look at different financing options if that's what you're looking for. In most cases it is. And you'll be able to finance it. Most financing between 20 to 25-year financing at extremely low rates, between anywhere from 1.49 to about 3.99. So they can finance the solar system, and that financing in about 90% of the cases would cost less than the utility bill that you pay right now. So you, Jeremy, have, let's say, a $200 average bill. I'm going to come to you with a proposal that's already on your roof, that's placed in the best locations. We're going to show you all these details, and I'm going to tell you that the cost for your system, again, like you said, making up numbers here, but important to understand, from a $200 bill, you're switching to about $140 bill, and that's with no down payment whatsoever, simply financing, and you're saving from day one. You don't pay for the system until it's already installed and activated.
Okay. Now, I'm sure a lot of realtors have this question come up constantly. I've seen it more and more where, people are selling and this and that, and they need to, they have this outstanding balance due. So what are some of the things that they can do with that balance when they sell?
Awesome question. So a couple of things. First of all, there's a little bit of misinformation going out there online right now from this post that I've seen so many realtors post. And it's actually going to be really important for you to know the difference. There's been some kind of a long post that says, customer bought a solar system and then they decided to sell the house, and now they're stuck with this balance and they have to pay it off instead of assuming the loan to the next person. Well, first of all, in 99% of the cases, the new buyer, the new homeowner actually wouldn't want to assume the loan, and that's okay. What you can do is, since those are unsecured loans, you can actually sell the home and then pay off the loan outright with the added home value. So with the added price that you've mentioned there. This is a UCC1 filing only, which means they can sell the home and then pay out the rest of it outright right after.
Okay. Now,
and that's about 99% of the cases, by the way.
Okay. Now, Scott, I think you just put a question in the chat. What happens when you go to sell the system and was billed for the family too, but it's sold for a family of 5. Okay, so yeah, so what happens? So this is the question. I kind of stumbled over it there. What happens when the system is for a family of 2 and now you got a family of 5? You got a lot more devices plugged in. You got a lot more electric happening. You got a lot more usage, washer, dryer, that sort of thing. Then what? Can you add on to the system?
Beautiful question. And I think one of the most important ones, by the way. So let's look at both cases. If you actually move from a 5 people family to 2, you're going to have some overage. And the good news there is that in most companies, that overage does carry over. So essentially, you're going to have overage that's good for you to be able to get. If it's a 200% difference, which usually it isn't, because even if you're 5 or 2, it's still the same home. Unless you get additions or anything crazy, you're not gonna have that much difference, because the main user of the home of electricity is pretty much the AC. So even if you have a few people, more TVs on, more showers, it still usually doesn't affect it that much of a difference. Okay. Now, on the opposite end, like you said, if you move from a 2 people home to a 5 people home, a smart professional would build a system that's modular that can add more panels. So I'll give you an example. There are a few types of inverters out there. One of them is called Solar Edge. It's a power optimizer, which basically means it's an inverter on the side of the house. Now, if that inverter doesn't have enough capacity to hold more panels, that homeowner needs to buy another inverter, another $3,000-$4,000 just to add panels. And that's the wrong way of doing business. So what we do is we either offer you microinverters, so you can literally add more panels at any point of time, completely modular, or when we do a Solar Edge, we actually create at least enough capacity for 10, 15 more panels, so you can always add more panels without any issue.
Great. Any more questions for Gigi here?
Yeah, yes, I have a couple of.
Okay, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, how secure are the panels during hurricanes? I know there's a lot of roof damage during hurricanes. Some get ripped off. And my next question is how disruptive is the construction or the storage units that's put inside the house? So how does that work out? Do you ripped up walls, or do you put some in the attic to store the electricity, the pound? It's not the pound, but the stored energy. Where is that? How does that work?
Beautiful questions there. So, to tackle I'll actually start with the second one, and I know Rob can attest to this, but the batteries, the storage, if there is, a lot of systems don't come with storage. A lot of times you don't need it, and it does have a significant price increase. But if you do need batteries, those batteries usually are outside, they are weather resistant, or they're on the inside, usually inside the garage. They're not going to be in the attic. Those are actually pretty big. And again, in most cases, you actually don't have batteries unless there's a specific need for them. And the reason is you have something called net metering with the companies, whereas you actually have a bi-directional meter. So you trade back and forth that energy that you create in excess with the utility provider, and that doesn't cost you any extra. So if you have batteries, usually outside, Rob, you got 4 batteries, I think, on the outside of your wall, looking beautiful. Yep. Right? Or on the inside of the garage as well. It really depends on your preferences. As far as hurricanes, what a great question, because that's the single most asked question we get in Florida, right? So the good news is these panels, especially in Florida, are hurricane rated. They're actually 160 to 180 mile per hour wind rating, which means they're category 5 hurricane rated. So in other words, the best way to explain this, unless your entire roof flies off, your panels are going to stay there. We actually had during one of the latest hurricanes, that was I think 2009. We had a pretty marginal one, and there's a story in the news back then that showed that there were neighborhoods that a roof got torn off, except houses with panels. And the reason being because the brackets and the way that they're laid out on the roof actually spreads the weight evenly. And if anything, it helps creates that support system for the roof.
Okay. Well, so what if some of the panels are damaged from a storm? Then how does that work? Is there an additional cost? Is that a separate financing thing that needs to be done? How does that work?
So a couple of things there. First of all, important to know that most companies offer you some warranty. And Jeremy, if you have a brand new roof, then you're going to love this part. A lot of them say, hey, we give you a 25-year warranty. And then you look at the fine prints and you find this 5-year workmanship and, you know, a year roof penetration. That's it. Our company, one of the only ones that provide an in-house 30-year warranty on everything, performance, product, workmanship, and roof penetration. Really making sure that the customers are happy long-term, which I think is ideal for any customers and for any company that's looking for good referrals as well. But the other part that's really important to understand here is that in the state of Florida, there is a requirement from the utilities to have an increased liability coverage on your home. So any project that's up to 11.76 kilowatts, I know it's just a metric, doesn't tell you too much, but I would say up to a medium-sized system only needs about $100,000 liability coverage, and anything over requires $1 million liability coverage. And we help the homeowners get that, but that's actually because of the way that Florida works with hurricanes. So in case something happens during a storm, it does go on the homeowner's insurance, but that's why you have that extra liability to cover it.
Reginald has a question in the chat. If you're generating more energy than your house uses, how much will the utility bill be, or will they pay you?
That's you're gonna laugh. So I'll give you the example of Duke Energy. Duke Energy love their customers, right? They love saving you money. I'm being sarcastic, of course. They really don't, I'm sorry to say, but they try to take as much money as possible. They're the worst inflator in the state of Florida and the third in the country, just to keep in mind. So the way it works, about 10 years ago, about 8 years ago, actually, they still used to pay overages. They would give you a check for the difference for any extra power you create. They don't do that anymore. Actually, on the opposite, they actually cut any type of credits you create from it at the end of the year. So if you haven't used your excess power within 12 months, they take it and say, thank you so much for the excess, we'll take it from here. So it's important to understand that's why you don't want to build a huge system for no reason. You're not going to start making a profit off of having a giant system that you don't need. And that's part of that reason why you want to work with an expert to understand your needs and not just solar. On the other hand, the only utility provider in Florida that actually do pay a check for the difference would be Florida Power and Light, FPL. And important to understand, even then, you're not going to break profit. They pay you the overage, but they do that in a 1 to 3. So basically, you make about a third of the worth of every kilowatt that you create. So it's really important to not go ahead and just build a giant system or try to go and build a solar farm. It's not going to give you that value that it did about 10 years ago. It's really about saving money compared to the kilowatts, the usage that you have for your home.
Rita has a question in the chat. Best insurance companies for solar?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I don't know if you guys work with your own PNCs and all, but one thing I would say is a lot of these companies right now, especially when you build the new bill that passed, are looking to actually accept more customers with solar. There has been, and I'm sure you'll read about it, there has been a few customers that, a few insurance companies that started dropping customers because of solar. And that created a little bit of kind of a fear factor for homeowners. But the best way to say it is don't worry. There are enough companies that do provide great rates provided with solar. I know AAA does it. I know USAA does it as well. So there's a few really good companies to work with. But on top of it, that extra insurance that I mentioned, if the homeowner can't get it with a reasonable rate from their company, keep in mind that they can do it as an umbrella liability coverage. And we can actually offer you a few agents to do that really well. The cost for that is about between $150 to $250 per year. So it's not a big difference, and it saved them so much more money on the solar side because of the difference between that and kilowatt rates. And great question, by the way.
All right, thank you, Rita. Anybody else have any questions? Juan, you've been extremely quiet there. Yeah, you're working on your emails there too? What's going on?
Oh, you're funny. I know he says that because I'm always interjecting with something. That's why I guess I'm the big mouth in the group. No. And
You say great question.
Yes, multitasking. My phone is going off. I don't want to interrupt. But no, this is some great information. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
I have one. I have one for you. In the event the power goes out, in a hurricane, for example, or just power goes out, how long can one expect to use the stored power from the solar system to be able to power the house?
Beautiful question. So if they do have batteries, then they'll be able to store the power and then have power during an outage. If they don't have batteries, and that's one of the largest or the biggest misconceptions in solar, you actually don't have power during a hurricane, even if you have panels on your home. Now that's kind of weird, right? But the main reason is, if you think about it logically, the panels needs a kick of electricity in order to get started, in order to start working and doing the inversion from AC to DC, or I'm sorry, from DC to AC. So basically the way that it works is that when you have a battery, that battery stores enough power to kick the electricity towards the inverters, get it started. And now during the nighttime, you're using that power. During the morning time, it kickstarts the system, and now the system reworks, recharges the battery, and it goes back and forth. Here's my most important part about batteries, and your homeowners would love this. This is what I tell most homeowners. Unless you have outages all the time, right? You live in the coast and you got constant outages for weeks, I don't always recommend batteries. I'll give you a little bit of a comparison. If you live next to a hospital or in the same grid and you have only outages for a few hours every couple of months, you take the number of days that you have an outage and how many of those days you would literally be able to spend in a 5-star hotel during that whole year for the next 10 years, and you still wouldn't pay the amount that you'll pay for batteries. And that's the whole truth. And let me tell you a secret. 99% of my industry would never tell you this because they make money off of batteries and it's easy. So it's really important to understand batteries sound great. They're a luxury, right? If you want to have power during an outage, great, do it by all means. But if not, and you're really about saving money with solar, then it's really not about getting that power when you have an outage. It's more about saving money by replacing the electricity used from the utility bill to the electricity you're going to use from yourself, right? It's your own power plant on your roof. And,
I think just to add to that, Gigi, I love talking batteries all day. It's I like to geek out about that. But I think what Gigi said obviously is true. But there's a lot of misconceptions, that people assume they get batteries, and what do you do with that energy? So it's very, very common that we just assume the solar system includes batteries, or we assume that, and that's, like Gigi said, there's the assumption that if you have solar, then you just have power all the time, regardless. The other half of that you have to think about is if the grid goes down and your solar system is running, it's basically trying to power your entire neighborhood, if you think about it, because now you're directly connected to everyone. So it can actually damage your system. It could damage the grid. People are trying to work on the grid to repair, you're sending out power. It's actually there's a dangerous factor there as well. So there's multiple assets to it. So normal solar, traditional solar, 99% of solar that we sell is just solar only. And then you are kind of tied to outages and things like that. Batteries are genuinely actually a very complicated conversation, right? And I love supporting homeowners that really have that interest and passion. But there's a number of reasons why batteries make sense. In a net metering situation like most of Florida, it's just that luxury convenience feature. And you can't put a price on that because some people are adamant and passionate about it. And, but if you try to do the cost analysis with batteries, it just completely breaks kind of the model. Now, there are places in the country, just for general knowledge for everyone, that, they don't offer net metering, or there's different challenges that go along with it. And so there's opportunities to basically use those batteries as kind of self-storage. And so you're not sending out to the grid and pulling back from the grid if they don't give you full credit and things like that. So there's kind of, they call it like a self-consumption mode, which eventually you kind of reduce the dependency of the grid to almost zero. And so you can kind of just run on your own and not really ever exchange with the grid as little as possible. But there's a lot of factors that go into that. So I typically try to talk people out of going batteries because they're usually doing it for the wrong reasons. But if they have the right reasons, it is a little bit of a complex conversation because you need to understand what your consumption is, what your goals are, what type of appliances are we running. There's a power versus energy conversation. So like I said, it actually gets very, very complicated, but it's probably just for you guys, just general knowledge that it's most cases not needed, not necessary. And just, it's a lot simpler that way for everybody.
So then would you recommend a backup generator? I once had a mountain property with a backup generator, and there's a switch. There's a switch you have to get. It's a pretty expensive switch that you put on the
ATS,
so whenever the power goes out, it automatically turns on the generator, runs the generator. So would you recommend that with a solar system, or what?
So that's a fantastic question. So the previous solar company I worked with, we actually worked with Generac, and Generac now has gone, obviously everyone knows Generac from a generator perspective, but they've moved into the solar industry because they know where this is going. They see the writing on the wall. So it's actually, they produce a decent quality solar system and battery backup system. And so I used to do direct cost analysis of people that have backup needs, and they say, I'm assuming I'm going to buy a Generac, let's compare to solar. Well, all the other benefits of solar, everything we just discussed today, the cost savings day one, all the other benefits, you tie that into trying to do an apples to apples comparison with a generator to solar and batteries. It's not a contest. Generator may win out. It's a little bit cheaper day one, but within a year or two, the cost analysis just goes completely the other way. And so, but to be fair, it's a complex conversation, and a lot of the solar systems that we use do have the ability to interconnect to certain types of generators as well, right? So it depends on customers' needs, if they're truly trying to go fully off grid and things like that. The technology is really starting to get better and be able to integrate. And so, but most times, depending on the home situation, solar and battery would be enough. Like I said, in my situation, if the grid went down indefinitely, I wouldn't notice. It literally, all of my appliances would run. I could charge my cars. I mean, literally, I would not notice that the grid was gone, and I could run like that indefinitely because the balance of battery and solar that I have is enough to feed everything I have. So generators aren't that case. They can run for days or weeks, but when the fuel runs out and things like that, you don't have the same benefits. There's no maintenance costs and things like that. So it's a good question. It is possible. Integrations are possible. It just needs to make sense. If someone already has a generator and wants to go solar, great. We can definitely, there's opportunities to tie that in if in the right situation. It's a good question.
Super.
And Rob, there's another question in the chat. How do you project added value to a home for sale that has solar? So like, what would you say, and I know you're not in the real estate realm, that's us, right? But what would you say the added value to a home would be if they put in a $30,000 system? Are you seeing like a 1-to-1 ratio there? Like, could potentially it sell for $30,000 more?
Let me help there for a moment, because I think it's so important to understand this, and I'm going to kind of shoot our own leg here for a moment, because it's not always 1-to-1. In some cases, it's actually lower than what the total system would cost. But one, you get the tax credit that makes it completely lower, to the point that the home value would actually go higher than the total cost for the existing homeowner. The second part, though, that's really important to understand is the home value has this very basic calculation of how much money you're paying right now per month. If you're paying $200 a month, and I'm going to give you, Jeremy, an identical home like yours as a neighbor, right? So you have two houses that are identical. One of them has a $200 bill, and the other one has a $0 bill, just a customer service charge, let's say $10. So if you look at that and you have these two homes, and one of them has an average monthly bill of $200, one of them has only $10, that is quantifiable value that you can add there. And then if you add any type of increases from utility rates, you're only looking at a higher value. Not all neighborhoods have the same level, because the house just wouldn't jump in value because of one thing. But at the end of the day, especially when you do the project with a trusted person that gives a good price, I will say that in most cases, you can find the home value actually goes higher than the total cost of the system. Now, I mentioned something really important here, so I do want to touch base on it. And again, ladies and gentlemen, it's really about understanding where everything can go wrong or where you can create value for your homeowner. So, take that in, because when you talk to homeowners, these are the little things that they've probably already heard something about, and they were probably misinformed. So tax credit, right? What is that tax credit? Is that just 30% that they get as a gift with a nice little wrap from the IRS saying here, a check, right? It's not. It's think of it almost like an IRS gift card, where you would actually be able to get tax credit, not a rebate, a credit, based on your tax liability. If you don't have tax liability, you're not going to get anything, right? We had this 5 years ago where these random door knockers, no offense to them, would come up to different homeowners. We had this in Ocala, in the villages, where a lot of them are seniors and retired and living in Social Security. And they would tell them, hey, we'll slap 5 panels on your roof and you're going to have a $0 bill. We're going to eliminate your bill, and you're going to get 26% or 30% of the system in a check. And none of that happened, right? And they were extremely frustrated later. And it's really because of that misinformation. It's based on tax liability. So for example, if you guys are 1099 and you owe about $30,000 at the end of the year because of your income, great, you're going to be able to deduct that tax credit off of that. And again, that's always brings us, what you'll hear Rob and me saying every single time, is get advice with your tax professional. Make sure you do your taxes properly with your tax professional as far as a solar tax credit. The second part is, what if you're a W-2 and you have paid $10,000 already in taxes, throughout the year, and now you get a $10,000 tax credit? In that specific case, you're actually able to get a check back as part of your tax refund and then utilize that check to pay down the system. And that's kind of the responsible thing to do. But between everything I just mentioned, the level of misinformation in the industry that tells people, oh, don't worry, you're going to get the tax credit, or this is your final price, and they show them a price after tax credit without ever discussing it, is where your customers get really, really hurt. So if you want your customers to get a value add, refer them to a company, to people that will make sure they understand all of the information, and comes a year later, 2 years later, 5 years later, they're happy with their solar system, and the only surprises are good ones.
Thank you. Well, that's pretty much all the time we have. I do want to open up for any final questions that y'all have. Is there anything else that anyone can think of?
Yeah, I have one more question here. What kind of regulations are there for people in the solar industry that install like you guys? Are you guys regulated by anybody at all?
There is some standard regulation called NABCEP, where it's basically certification that people get. But however, I would say there is, except a little bit of oversight from the government, there's really not too much yet. That's the good part of the climate bill, is that it does start creating a little bit of oversight. But again, that's why you want to work with a company that's situated, not a local mom and pop's company just open and probably going to go out of business within the next 3 years. We're a company of 9 years, over 6,000 representatives all over the US. And we're very, very, very situated. Inc. 5000 number 61 last year, and this year I think going to be lower, announced actually next week. So again, work with a trusted company. We're a public benefit company, so everything we do gets audited and must show positive impact on homeowners and on the planet, by the way, which is why we love what we do. So
that's great.
Yeah, to add to that, obviously, the different way to look at it is these are construction projects as well, right? And so, we are the general contractor on all projects. We do all the engineering, and that goes out for permitting in the local municipality, right? And so there's regulations there that are unique to every home that we do all across the country. And so we have to work with local permitting offices. We need to pass and be up to code everywhere where we do the installations as well. We have to pass inspection when that's all done, right? So everything is done above board and properly. I've heard horror stories of companies they signed and they're out there a week and a half later putting panels on their roof, and their room permits are going to pass and all that, and it turns into a mess, right? And so we do everything properly, we do everything right, we take our time. It's a long-term commitment. Someone put, like I said, 30 to 45 years of something on your property, so it's really important that we do that right. So there's regulations there that we have to be up to spec. For example, in Florida, we basically install to the strictest code, which is Miami-Dade. So we install everything to the highest hurricane rating and things like that, pretty much in the whole state of Florida.
And Rob, if you can post your information in there as well. Guys, we would love to work with any of your referrals, but I think more important than what we would love, I want to give you guys a promise. And this is what I tell all of my realtors, HVACs, roofers that work with us. You know, I want you to think about one thing and think about all the hard work that you guys put into creating a good name to yourself and a relationship with your homeowners. And, you know, when you talk to them about solar, when you look at roofs, and if you will, if you got the right information from here, you'll never look at another rooftop the same way because there's going to be solar everywhere, and you're going to think, well, you know, I've heard about solar, now I understand more value in it, and I hope we provided that. But a promise that we make always, and this is Rob and myself, and Rob first, by the way, one of the best, most brilliant people I had the pleasure to work with, and, you know, for a reason, my business partner. We do make sure that we give the right value for homeowners. We preserve your name. We make sure they get the best prices versus best quality. We're not just going to give them the cheapest. You don't want to go cheap. Going cheap is expensive for 40 years on your roof. It's really about getting the right quality, getting the right price. And what I promise you is your customers will come back and thank you for referring them to the right people. We're going to take them through the whole journey, explain, inform, and at the end of the day, they get the best system and they will not find a better match in the industry, bar none. That's a promise.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Gigi. I appreciate it, Rob. Thank you so much for your time, you guys. We appreciate you. Everyone, their contact information is in the chat. Please grab it before we end the call, because after we end the call, it will be gone. Well, unless you reach out to me and I have it, and then that would be okay too.
Jeremy, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Y'all have a great morning.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
And go sell some houses today, people. Come on. What are you waiting for?
All right, thanks.
Thanks all. Appreciate it.
Bye, everyone. Have a great day.